Evidence for art in India is found in an ecstatic communion with nature. Monuments are left open to the sky, in contact with the sun, the moon, the earth, the wind. Such are the stupas at Sanchi, conceived as a marvelous symbol of the sun. The pilgrim, as he follows the Pradakshina Path, imitates the earth as it moves around the sun. Great monuments of the ancient world assert their nearness to the heavens by being situated on the crests of hills. Here at Sanchi, looking down to the fields, there is a sense of infinite space, expanding, almost as though we stood at the edge of eternity. In summer, the amultash and the gulmohar are in bloom. Our perceptions are aroused to rejoice quietly in the richness of nature. What is the stupa? Why is it venerated still? The first mention of the stupa is in the Rig Veda. The dead are entombed in a pit with the prayer, "O earth, heave up, do not press upon the dead man." Text of the Mahapariniban Sutta, the Buddha himself recommends the creation of stupas over the mortal remains of Buddhas. As men treat the remains of the King of Kings, so should they treat the remains of a Tathagata. A Tathagata or Arhat Buddha is worthy of a stupa. A Buddha is worthy of a stupa. Buddha, the Enlightened One, suggests one of the highest aspirations of philosophy. He attained enlightenment when he sat down to meditate under the peepal tree at Bodh Gaya. After his death, Buddhism changed from being a movement of ethical purity and individual salvation into becoming a cult religion. Within 300 years of his demise, the Buddha was transformed from being a great leader of men into becoming a deified Godhead. When the Buddha died at Kusinagar, his mortal remains were interred in a stupa. A great war ensued in fighting over these relics. Stupas were established as pilgrimage centers all over India. Later, the stupa became a commemorative monument to remind us of the Buddha, to serve in his place as a cult object, to be worshipped with flowers and offerings. The stupa symbolized the presence of the Buddha. Very soon, relic worship was extended not only to the mortal remains of the Buddha, but to that of his followers. Stupa III at Sanchi housed the relics of Sariputra and Mahamoggallana. They were the most famous disciples and contemporaries of Gautam Buddha. Stupa II at Sanchi, halfway down the hill, contains relics of 10 Buddhist saints and teachers who took part in the convocation held by the Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BC. In our own century, another convocation took place in 1952. Buddhism was established in the 3rd century BC as the official religion of the Mauryan Empire. Ashoka raised his edicts on pillars and rocks as far south as Tiruchirappalli and as far west as Girnar. According to popular legend, he is credited with having built 84,000 stupas all over India, including the central core of the Great Stupa at Sanchi. The central core of this stupa, when excavated in the 19th century, revealed bricks of the shape and size produced in the modern age. The second casing of the stupa, which is in stone and not brick, was added almost 100 years later. A stone path was provided and a balustrade for the ritual of circumambulation round the stupa. Finally, at a third stage, the gateways or torans were added in the 1st century AD. To confirm the antiquity of Sanchi, an Ashokan pillar still stands near the south gateway of the Great Stupa. This pillar once rose to a height of 42 feet, but it is now in fragments. A local zamindar decided to cut it up and use its shaft in a sugarcane press. The hieratic lions compare to the Sarnath capital, which is today adopted as the official seal of the Republic of India. This sandstone was transported from the quarries at Chunar, more than 1,000 miles away near Varanasi. These lions were once surmounted by the Dharma Chakra, the symbol of the Buddha. A relief demonstrates the fascinating fact that these pillars were once worshipped. We believe that Sanchi was designed to be, as it still is today, a retreat from the busy life of the city.
2,000 years ago and more, the stupas and monasteries were built here.
It was only 7 miles away from the city of Vidisha, then a great metropolis of North India. Prince Mahendra, the son of the Emperor Ashoka, was sent as special emissary to Sri Lanka. En route, the records tell us that he stopped to see his mother at Chatyagiri and stayed at a sumptuous Bihar, a monastery which he had built here. As opposed to the increasing complexities of the city, these monasteries posed an alternate way of life. The Buddhist text of the Mahavagga recommends, for instance, a spot not too far from the town and not too near, suitable for going and coming, easily accessible for all people, by day not too crowded, by night not exposed to noise and alarm, clean of the smell of people, hidden from men. At Sanchi, the whole history of Buddhism can be relived from the 3rd century BC to the 10th century AD, when its momentum began to ebb away in India. One of the earliest temples of the Gupta age, Temple 17, is a rudimentary but crucial beginning to temple construction. They are medieval temples. There are over 800 inscriptions here. From these we learn that each relief on the balustrade and on the gateways was donated as an act of piety. The donors were not kings and head priests, but members of the Buddhist laity, monks and nuns and their pupils. They travelled from Gandhar in the far north, Maheshmati, Patitan, from Ujjain, and of course from Vidisha. Because Vidisha was on all the trade routes, Sanchi thrived as a pilgrimage center. Among the donors, we read the gifts of the Grihapati, the householder, the Sethya, the banker, the Vanija, the merchant, the Lekhak or scribe, and the Dantukars of Vidisha. The reference to the Dantukars is fascinating, The low reliefs are so similar in technique to ivory carving. The minute detail work is worked to perfection. The Sanchi Gateways are among the best preserved of monuments from the 1st century AD. We are fortunate to find them in situ. At one chapter of their history in the 19th century, Napoleon Bonaparte had asked for one of the gateways to be shipped to Paris. In the case of other stupas, such as those at Bharati and Amravati, the reliefs are scattered through different museums. Unfolding before our eyes, we see cities that were fortified with high walls, with turrets and gateways, crowded with windows and balconies, all built in wood, as cities were at that time, and seething with life. We witness processions in chariots, on elephants, a city besieged, warriors on foot. We glimpse a view of the ashrams, usually situated beside the river, in dense forests, in touch with birds, monkeys, trees that are in flower, in touch with the fruits of this earth. Then there are marvelous details of daily routine, of women cooking, grinding spices, winnowing the grain. These are anecdotal details, even as a great event takes place of the visit of Indra and Brahma to the Buddha. There are innumerable scenes which depict the visits of royalty out to the sacred groves and ashrams, of the Emperor Ashoka, the King Bimbasar, and even the god Indra going out on a visit to the Buddha in his hermitage. Then there are scenes of paradise, and paradise too, we discover, is not too different from the good life on this earth. The gods and goddesses are found in the Himalayas, on rocks that are fed by waterfalls, vibrant with trees and alive with the sound of birds. We are reminded of the legendary Uttara Karu, described thus in the Ramayana. The land is watered by lakes with golden lotuses. There are rivers by thousands, full of the leaves of the color of sapphire and lapis lazuli. Instead of sand, pearls, gems, and gold form the banks of rivers which are overhung with trees of fire-bright gold. These trees perpetually bear flowers and fruit and give forth a sweet fragrance, and they abound with birds. The tendency to dream and fantasize is manifest here, not only in the heavens above, but here on earth, in the sensuous, earthy image of the Yakshi, the tree goddess who clings to the gateways. As she reaches up to embrace the Ashoka tree, it seems as though energy flows from her limbs into the branches of the tree. She not only embodies the tree, but she seems born from it, like a ripe fruit that is fully formed. Such images of the Yaksha and Yakshi are evidence of the popular imagination which sees trees as inhabited by spirits and guardian deities. Divinity exists as much in a stone as in a tree, in rivers, in the rock of the mountain. These yakshas and yakshis were among the earliest deities to be worshipped as cult images. They were powerful, colossal images, malevolent at times, but often invoked as guardians. Consider the stupendous image of the Yaksha found near Besnagar, near Sanchi, and now in the Vidisha Museum. It towers to a height of over 14 feet. Power is made manifest through sheer size and physical presence. The funny ears of a bat or bird are there to suggest that he is only half human, Kinnara. Because these images were popular and in worship at the time when Buddhism was growing, they were accepted into the Buddhist pantheon. At Sanchi, the yakshas appear on each of the rail posts of 4 gateways as the Dikpals or Lokpals, the rulers of the 4 quarters of the world. Virupaksha, Kuber, Virudhaka, and Dhritarashtra. Another popular image was the goddess Shri, as she is then named in the inscriptions, Gajalakshmi, watered by elephants, as she rises supremely from a bed of lotuses. Besides being the symbol of fertility, of divine birth, the lotus is the plant of good fortune, the giver of wealth to mankind. Serpent worship was much in evidence in the early centuries, and these too were accepted into the Buddhist pantheon. A legend tells us that when the Buddha sat down to meditate under the Bodhi tree, Mukhalinda, the serpent king of the Nagas, shielded him from the sun and rain for 40 days. On the west gateway we see the Nagaraj with his retinue of wives and musicians, with the Buddha above, represented in the form of a peepal tree. In fact, the Buddha is invariably shown in symbolic form in the 1st century as the peepal tree to suggest his moment of enlightenment, as the Dharma Chakra to remind us of his first sermon at Sarnath, or as the Stupa to remind us of his passing away. The story appears in Buddhist law that when Sujata brought the Buddha a bowl of rice as he meditated, she had mistaken him for a yaksha. Thus the cult of tree worship was completely absorbed into Buddhism. In an animated relief from the East Gateway, we notice an extraordinary assemblage of forest animals, paying tribute to the Buddha, who is represented as a tree. They are shown with delicious humor, with faces that are almost human. Is the sculptor trying to caricature human personality, or does he mean to say that there is little difference between man and the animal species? The philosophy of Buddhism, the basis upon which this religion was founded, establishes a sense of compassion and communion with all living matter, plant and animal life being included. The belief is in the transmigration of souls, from one form of life into another, from the life of an ant to that of an elephant to that of a man. This might explain why animal life is treated with such remarkable tenderness and feeling in the sculptures at Sanchi, almost, you might think, with a sense of total identity. The Buddha, no less, partook of previous lives and incarnations, where he displayed compassion in the guise of a king of elephants, or as a Mahakapi, the king of monkeys, giving up his life to save the life of others of his tribe. At Sanchi, as much importance is given to plant and animal life as to man, because it is believed that there is no distinction. We are all infused with the same life force, the same pran that flows from one life to the next, as does the sense of energy, of life breathing into the vital formation of plants and of birds and of animal figures. Buddhism, of course, changed. As it grew, it had to fulfill the demands of a popular religion and of cult worship. Soon after the gateways were built at Sanchi, the Buddha image evolved. He was represented in the form of man, but with certain signs of his divinity, and with a sense of gentleness that was all-encompassing. We have much to learn from this sense of communion. With this also is generated a sense of man's place in the universe, of humility tendered with compassion.